Anders Fogh Rasmussen's term as NATO chief may be almost up, but now questions are being asked about he got the job in the first place. Freshly in the spotlight, WikiLeaks documents suggest Rasmussen abused his powers as Prime Minister to guarantee himself his future job. Specifically, Denmark reportedly agreed to start legal action against a Kurdish separatist channel that was broadcasting from Copenhagen in 2009. In return, Turkey said it would back Rasmussen as the future NATO chief. So why was Turkey worried about these broadcasts? Ankara long claims Roj TV was a mouthpiece for the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which fights for the rights of the Kurdish minority and is considered a terrorist organisation in Turkey and the West. Now, the channel started broadcasting in 2004. In 2010, it was officially accused in Denmark of promoting terrorist activities. And this year, the channel's licence was finally revoked. We spoke to their lawyer.
We have a special independent committee on television in Denmark, which would issue the certificates. And the Turkish government had at 3 different occasions complained to this committee. And each time they concluded that the coverage of the fights, the clashes, the conflict between the PKK, the Kurdish guerrillas, and the Turkish security forces was just like the coverage you would find at the big Danish news television stations. So we thought that also the courts would respect the freedom of expression, the freedom of press, the freedom of information. But it didn't occur.
Now, we asked NATO to comment on the leaks about the deal to appoint Rasmussen. Their press office told us to talk to Danish judicial authorities, insisting that the courts were fully independent. However, journalist, lawyer and former MP Bjørn Elmquist questions that claim.
There were some conflicts of political character between Denmark and Turkey. And the United States intervened because they liked very much to have the then Danish Prime Minister to become the Secretary General. And therefore they felt comfy with him as the Secretary General. There was a big pressure from US towards the Danish authorities to think in a creative manner how to indict and how to prove that Rus television was promoting terrorism. And in the end, the indictment was there. Within hours after that indictment, it was announced that there was agreement between the Turkish government and the other NATO countries to design the previous Danish Prime Minister as the Secretary General.
OK, for some more insight, let's discuss the issue further with Kurdish activist Dilar Diriq. Mr. Diriq, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us today. Now, NATO says Rasmussen had no power to get the courts to do anything. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, Turkey had been trying to get Denmark to close Roj TV ever since it was launched in 2014, and they repeatedly filed complaints, but they were unsuccessful until Rasmussen bid to become the next NATO Secretary General in 2009. And Turkey did not make it a secret that Roj TV's closure was a condition for them to support Rasmussen. And suddenly, in the next year, the Danish government decided to prosecute Roj TV. And this isn't very, this doesn't really come as a shock or as a surprise, because there have been several anti-Kurdish policies that were adopted by European governments to appease Turkey to commonly fight against terrorism, supposedly.
And just on that point,
so in a way, Kurds... Yeah.
Just on that, sorry for interrupting, but just on that point, why would Rasmussen presumably go to so much length to curry favour with Turkey, do you believe?
Well, no, Turkey is a very important NATO ally. It is a very, very crucial country in the region, and appeasing Turkey is very important for several Western NATO countries.
You know, right, even if it is
for
true,
them to...
Yeah, what does it actually change? Because a happy Turkey is, of course, it's a lot more important to Europe than a happy Kurdistan if it eventually happens. What's your thoughts just on that kind of difference?
Well, the difference is, I think the Kurdish issue is one of the most unresolved issues of the century, and this war between the PKK and Turkey benefits several people, several institutions and countries. So I think there are several larger issues that are connected to this. So on one hand, while the West closed the eyes to human rights violations in Turkey, and actively contributed to these human rights violations by either providing military or intelligence. On the other hand, the Kurdish diaspora in Europe was completely criminalized. And we see the similar thing happening with Kurds in Syria, for example, even though the people have established very progressive self-governance structures in the north of Syria. The European governments do not really have a position on that, even though it would eventually be of benefit to all.
Okay, just very briefly, the Kurdish broadcaster now wants, and I'm reading here, the European Court of Human Rights to look into their case. Do you believe, very briefly, anything will come out of that?
It depends, because I really don't know, because we see different things happening. We see, for example, last year in Paris, 3 Kurdish activists being murdered. We see very different kinds of policies, anti-Kurdish policies, being adopted by European governments, and these are not disconnected from the European Court of Human Rights. So this is a political question rather than a question of justice, because as long as the Kurdish issue is treated as a question of terrorism, this will not go very far, I don't think.
Great. Thank you very much, Dilar Diriq, Kurdish activist. We appreciate your time.